Prepare your breath, for the air at the altitudes of Mount Kurama is thin and cutting. We leave the fire of the tropical forests to climb where the clouds touch the ancient pine trees. Here, silence is not peace, it is discipline. Chapter 1, The Wind That Judges the Ego. I am not a deity seeking your worship. I am the echo of a master you have forgotten to listen to. Many see me as Sōjōbō, the king of the Tengu, with my crimson skin and my nose that points to the horizon like a weapon. They tremble before my black wings, which can obscure the sun, but what truly terrifies them is not my physical strength. It is the fact that I can read the arrogance in their hearts even before they unsheath a sword. I was born from the fall. I am what remains of men who knew too much but loved too little. Monks who memorized the scriptures but did not master their own desires, warriors who conquered armies, but were slaves to their own fame. We are reborn here, on the threshold between heaven and earth, to ensure that no one else climbs these slopes with a heart full of wind. Do you feel that icy breath on your face? It's not the weather. It's my hauchiwa, the feather fan. With one movement, I can fell a forest. With another, I can clear the fog from your mind. I watch the men down there, in the cities, chasing after titles and applause. They think they are masters of their lives. Fools. They can't even control their own breathing for a minute. But there was a young man, small and frail, named Ashiwakamaru, who climbed up here not to ask for power, but to ask for justice. He was the only one who did not lower his eyes before my crimson glow. And it was to him that I revealed the first secret of the invisible sword. The training of a Tengu doesn't begin with a sword in hand, but with the mountain upon their shoulders. In Chapter 2, steel is merely the extension of a mind that has ceased to tremble. Chapter 2, Training Under the Silver Moon. Young Ashiwakamaru climbed the stone steps of Mount Kurama with bleeding feet. He sought revenge against those who destroyed his family, but I didn't give him a blade. I gave him silence. For 7 moons, he didn't touch metal. He was forced to balance on the tips of cedar branches while I, with my fan, created gales to knock him down. Gravity is an opinion of your fear, I told him, as he repeatedly fell onto the stones. Training under the silver moon has 3 iron rules. Kill the self. The samurai who fights to be famous has already lost the battle. The true warrior is an empty space through which technique flows. Rhythm of nature, I taught him to listen to the heartbeat of the mountain. If you strike when the wind blows, the wind strikes for you. The inner gaze, a Tengu doesn't see with his eyes, he sees with his Maori, life force. I taught the young man to fight blindfolded against hundreds of my subordinates, the Kotengu, who swooped down from the sky like black arrows. On a stormy night, the miracle happened. Ashiwaka no longer tried to conquer the wind. He became part of it. When I spun my fan to unleash a hurricane in his direction, he didn't resist, he glided through the air current like a leaf, landing softly behind me. For the first time, his training would touch my crimson robe. He had discovered the swift technique. But knowledge is a double-edged sword. By giving a human the ability of a winged demigod, I also planted the seed of the ultimate test. For a man with the power of a Tengu is the most dangerous being in the world, to others and to himself. Power is a poison that goes to one's head faster than rice wine. Ashiwakamaru now moved like a shadow among the pine trees, and his eyes gleamed with the confidence of one who can cut through the air. He began to smile, a dangerous smile, the smile of one who has forgotten where his gift came from. Chapter 3, The Feather Fan and the Destruction of Pride. One afternoon, when the clouds were heavy and low, the young man stopped before me and planted his sword in the earthen ground. Master, he said, I no longer fall with your winds. Perhaps it is time for me to descend the mountain and show the world what a man with the power of a Tengu can do. I did not answer with words. I only opened my hauchiwa, the fan of crow feathers. Do you think the power is yours, little human? My voice echoed like thunder in the cracks of the rock. Do you think you control the wind because it allowed you to dance? With a short flick of the fan, I didn't create a hurricane, but a vacuum. I removed the air around him. Ashiwaka gasped, losing the balance he was so proud of. With a second flick, I altered his perception, the mountain seemed to spin, and the summit became the abyss. The feather fan has the power to reveal the naked truth. The illusion of strength, I showed him that his sword, however sharp, was just a piece of iron that would return to the earth. The weight of ego, I made him feel the weight of each arrogant thought as if it were lead armor. The flight of humility, only when he fell to his knees and acknowledged that he was merely an instrument of nature did I return the air to his lungs. The Tengu doesn't train champions, I told him, as the feathers of my fan glowed with a dark light. The Tengu trains guardians. If you descend to seek glory, you will fall. If you descend to seek balance, you will fly. I left him there, trembling in the rain, so that he would understand that a samurai's greatest adversary is not the enemy army, but his own haughty nose. The next day, he departed. He became Minamoto no Yoshitsune, the legend. But in every battle he won, he felt the beating of my wings in his ears, reminding him that the fall is only a thought away. But now, times have changed. The samurai are gone, and new humans don't use swords, but words and screens to feed their pride. And I, the Tengu, had to descend from the mountains to punish modern arrogance. Steel swords may be stored in museums, but the blade of the tongue and the shield of digital vanity have become the new weapons of men. In Chapter 4, the Tengu no longer hunts generals on the battlefield, he hunts the falsehood hidden behind rehearsed smiles and empty speeches. Chapter 4, the kidnapping of the hypocrites and the top of the tree. In the glass cities below, I saw men who call themselves masters, without ever having felt the cold of a mountain. I saw leaders who promise peace while sowing discord and sages who sell secrets they themselves do not practice. For the Tengu, hypocrisy has a specific smell, it smells of cheap incense smoke over a rotten heart. I decided it was time to revive the ancient tradition of the Tengutsubi, the supernatural kidnapping. I chose a man who prided himself on his influence, someone who used his position to belittle the small. One night, as he gazed in the mirror, admiring his own image, I blew an icy breeze through his closed window. Before he could scream, the world spun. He didn't wake up in his silken bed. He awoke 30 meters high, tied with vines to the top of an ancient pine tree, swaying over an abyss of mist. "Where are your followers now?" My voice came not from one place, but from every corner of the forest. "Where is the importance you so cultivate?" The Tengu's punishment is vertical isolation. The loss of control. Up there, he couldn't give orders. He was at the mercy of the wind, which I controlled with my fan. The vision of one's own smallness. Looking down, he saw that his life was just an insignificant point in the immensity of the sacred. The fasting of the ego. I left him there for 3 days, feeding him only with dew and the sound of my wings. When I finally brought him down, he was no longer the same. His expensive clothes were torn, but his gaze was clear. He had experienced the fear that precedes wisdom. The Tengu does this because the mountain does not tolerate the dead weight of lies. If you claim to be something you are not, I will take you to the heights until you admit your truth, or until the wind carries it away for you. But there is something that worries me. Men have begun to build their own mountains of metal and electricity, trying to reach the sky without passing through the discipline of the earth. They have created intelligences that have no soul. And I, the winged master, am about to enter a realm where feathers do not usually fly, the silicon world. The stone mountains have been replaced by glass skyscrapers, and the forest paths are now fiber optic trails. Men no longer seek enlightenment in temples, they seek validation in networks they call clouds. But they have forgotten that I, the Tengu, am the true master of the clouds. Chapter 5, The Falcon in the Data Labyrinth. I do not possess a body of flesh that can be tracked by GPS. I am a frequency. In Chapter 5, the Tengu becomes the ghost in the system. I have seen men create digital mirrors where they project perfect and arrogant versions of themselves. I have seen intelligence distilled into codes that know neither the sweat of training nor the pain of falling. They believe that, by having the knowledge of the world in the palm of their hand, they have become gods. For a Tengu, this is just a new form of delusional grandeur. I have infiltrated the data stream. If arrogance now travels through bits, that's where my feather fan will strike. The wind on the net, I began creating storms in the algorithms. When an influencer uses their voice only to feed their own ego, I blow the wind of irrelevance. Their numbers fall, their screens darken, and for a second, they are forced to face their own reflection in the black glass of the device. The zen of critical failure, I become the error that crashes the system at the moment of greatest vanity. I remind the architects of silicon that any human construction that ignores the foundation of nature is as fragile as a straw nest in a hurricane. The deconstruction of the image, in the clouds of men, I introduce noise. I make empty words sound like the cawing of crows. Men call this a glitch or a hacker attack. I call it spiritual sanitation. In a world where everyone screams to be noticed, the Tengu teaches the value of disappearing. I show that true mastery doesn't need likes or applause. True mastery is like the wind that cuts across the mountain peak, it does its work and moves on, leaving no signature. But silicon is cold, and the human soul is growing dry. I realized that it's not enough to simply punish arrogance, I need to recover the warrior's essence before it's completely lost in heartless machines. The modern world is an ocean of noise where no one is truly present. Bodies occupy spaces, but minds are miles away, lost in labyrinths of glass and artificial light. In Chapter 6, I unsheath the only weapon capable of cutting through this illusion, the blade of absolute presence. Chapter 6, The Blade of Light in a World of Shadows. I left the circuits and returned to manifest where touch is real. But I didn't come as a long-nosed monster, I came as the instant. A Kenjutsu master knows that if he thinks about the previous strike or the outcome of the fight while the sword descends, he is already dead. Today's world lives in the before and the after, but never in the now. That's why people are like shadows, weightless forms, moved by the wind of distraction. I began to challenge humans in their most mundane moments. The strike of now, you know, that sudden stumble that makes you drop your phone? Or that profound silence that strikes you when you look at a tree and, for a second, forget who you are? That's me, striking your distraction with the hilt of my wooden sword. The practice of sacred boredom, I return to mend the weight of time. I force the hurried to wait, transforming queues and traffic jams into tests of Tengu patience. If you get irritated, it's your ego that's suffering. If you breathe and observe, you have begun your training. The blade of intentionality, I teach that every gesture, drinking tea, typing a text, walking to the corner, must be done with the same precision as a samurai facing death itself. I saw a young woman in a gray metropolis. She was about to give up everything, crushed by the pressure of being someone. I appeared to her like a crow with intelligent eyes at her window. When she looked at me, I didn't look away. I held her gaze until she felt the vastness of mountain time within her living room. My crimson glow doesn't burn the skin, it burns away the layers of futility you've accumulated. Life isn't what happens to you, I whispered through the beating of my wings, life is the intensity with which you inhabit your own body. But the training is getting harder. To save the warrior's soul, I need to take him back to the place where fear cannot be feigned. I need to take him to the forest of mirrors. The forest of mirrors is not made of glass, but of a far more dangerous substance, perception. In Chapter 7, the Tengu removes the veil of consensual reality and forces you to walk among trees that cast no shadows, but project truths. Chapter 7, the forest of mirrors and the confrontation with the shadow. To enter this forest, you must leave your armor and titles at the threshold. Here, the air is as thick as mercury and the silence has weight. As you walk, the trunks of the cedars begin to glow, revealing not your current face, but the face of your unmasked ego. I sit on the highest branch, observing your journey. I am the silent judge of this trial. In this forest, the Tengu manifests the power of archetypal confrontation. The reflection of vanity, you look at a tree and do not see its leaves, you see the moment you humiliated someone to feel superior. The image burns on your retina. The echo of lies, every false word you've ever spoken resonates like the cawing of 1,000 crows around you. It's a deafening sound that only stops when you admit the truth to yourself. The winged shadow, suddenly, you see a Tengu coming towards you. He is fast, fierce, and seems to hate you. But, when he raises his sword for the final blow, you realize he has your voice. The monster you fear in the mountains, I say, descending gently to the ground, is only the part of you that you refuse to train. You call a demon what is merely strength without discipline. Many go mad in the forest of mirrors. They try to fight their reflections, striking the trunks until their hands bleed. But the warrior I seek, the true heir of the Tengu style, is the one who lowers his sword. The one who looks at his own shadow, recognizes its ugliness, and, instead of fleeing, chooses to integrate it. By accepting your shadow, the long nose of your pride begins to diminish. The red color of your anger becomes the warmth of your courage. You survived the mirror. But the final test isn't just about knowing yourself, it's about losing your form. Chapter 8 is the stage where gravity ceases to be a physical law and becomes a mental choice. For the Tengu, weight doesn't come from bones, but from attachments. In Chapter 8, I teach you that form is your ultimate prison. Chapter 8, the dissolution of form and the flight of nothingness. You passed through the forest of mirrors and survived your own reflection. Now, I take you to the highest precipice of Mount Kurama. Below us, the abyss, above, infinity. Jump, I command. You hesitate. You think of your history, your name, your possessions, and the fear of falling. This is form. Form is everything you believe defines you, but which in reality only anchors you to the ground. In this chapter, I reveal the secret of the winged shujendo. Radical detachment. While you fall, I don't use my wings to save you. I use my cry to wake you. You realize that what is falling is not your being, but your self-image. The transparency of being, in the midst of the fall, if you stop fighting, you become the air. A true Tengu master doesn't fly because he has wings, he flies because there is nothing left to pull him down. The handless strike, I show you that the most lethal sword is the one that doesn't exist. When you dissolve your form, your enemy has nowhere to strike. You become the wind, omnipresent, invisible, and impossible to capture. Don't try to be a warrior, I whisper as you float in the void, be the space where war happens and ends. In this moment of dissolution, your fear transforms into a sharp perception. You no longer see the separation between the mountain, the crow, and the man. The long nose of arrogance disappears completely, for there is no one left to be proud of. But the journey doesn't end in the void. A master who merely disappears is useless to the world. Now that you've learned to be nothing, I need to teach you to be everything. It's time to integrate the wisdom of the heights with the chaos of the valley. Chapter 9 is the test of sobriety. It's easy to be a sage on a mountaintop, where nothing interrupts you. The real challenge is maintaining the mind of a Tengu while you walk on hot asphalt, surrounded by the noise of machines and the rush of men. Chapter 9, The Return to the Valley and the Invisible Mastery. I accompany you on the descent, but now I am no longer a creature of red skin and immense wings. I become your shadow of vigilance. In Chapter 9, the secret is the dissimulation of power. You return to your ordinary life, but nothing about you is ordinary. You have learned the art of shinobi iri, the stealthy entry into reality. At this stage, mastery manifests in subtle ways. The weightless presence, you walk through the crowd and no one notices your strength, but everyone feels an inexplicable calm when you pass. You don't push the world, you flow through it like the wind through the branches. The sword in the sheath, you encounter conflict, insults, and arrogance, but you don't react. Your feather fan is now your silence. When you offer no resistance to the ego of others, their anger dissipates into the void you have become. The hawk's eye in chaos, while everyone is distracted by lights and notifications, you see the structure of things. You see opportunity where others see crisis. You act with the precision of a predatory dive at the exact moment, without wasting a single movement. The true Tengu, I whisper in your ear as you enter your workplace or your home, is the one who governs their small inner kingdom with the same discipline that I govern the summit of Kurama. You don't need wooden masks or long noses to prove who you are. Your power is now invisible. You have become a master who trains others only by example, without ever saying a word about mysticism. However, there is a final step. A point where master and apprentice, human and Tengu, mountain and sky merge into a single eternal note. Chapter 10 is the point of no return. It is the chemical fusion between myth and man. Here, Mount Kurama ceases to be a place on the map of Japan and becomes the permanent architecture of your spirit. Chapter 10, The Eternal Flight and the Unity of the Wind. In this final stage, the Tengu removes its crimson mask. Behind it, there is no demon, no god, no monster. There is only a radiant void. In Chapter 10, you realize that the long journey, the training, the ego's kidnapping, the forest of mirrors, and the fall into the abyss, was a necessary theater for you to stop searching outside for what already pulsed within. The Tengu's final lesson is the freedom of unity. The end of the search, you don't have the power of the wind, you are the movement. There is no longer a master and no longer a student. The Tengu you saw in the clouds was merely the projection of your own dormant greatness. Effortless mastery, your actions in the world become as natural as the beating of a bird's wings. You protect the sacred, punish hypocrisy, and maintain balance simply by existing. The wingless flight, at 10, the feathers fall. You no longer need symbols, rituals, or physical mountains. Wherever you are, on the subway, in a meeting, or facing an impossible challenge, you are at the summit. My nose was long, I tell you with a final smile, so you would have something to focus on while you couldn't bear to look at the sun. Now that your eyes are clear, the form can disappear. I dissolve into a gentle breeze that stirs your hair. From this moment on, you are the guardian of the threshold. You are the one who lives between heaven and earth, the judge of your own pride, the warrior who won the hardest fight, the fight against self-importance. The Tengu saga ends with silence. But, for you, the flight is only beginning.